Since most teachers use Google Classroom as a place to post assignments and store materials, it's essential that students have an understanding of how Google Classroom is set up. The purpose of this video is to go over some of the basic features and provide some tips on using Google Classroom to help you maximize efficiency. Next, let's take a look at assignments with attached files and Classroom Drive folders. Sometimes students have assignments that contain an attached Google Doc or Google Slide. Here's an example of that under My Classwork. If I pull up the Your Work section, you can see here that I have a Google Doc that is attached to my assignment on this back to school essay. Occasionally, students will accidentally tap the X next to the assignment, and they think that their assignment has been deleted because it disappears. In reality, they've only removed the attachment from their assignment. Every Google Classroom you join automatically gets a folder created in Google Drive where your documents are stored. If you accidentally bump the X and your assignment disappears, all you have to do is tap Add Attachment and go to Google Drive. Under Drive, find your Google Classroom folder. And then find the folder for the specific class. In this case, here is that assignment that I accidentally unattached, and now it's put right back on there. So unless you delete the assignment in Google Drive, you're never going to delete an assignment if you accidentally unattach it in Google Classroom. Next, let's take a look at where you can check your grades in Google Classroom. Under the Classwork tab, in the upper right-hand corner, you will see an icon that looks like a clipboard with the outline of a person on it. That clipboard will lead you to the screen where you can check your grades. As you can see in this particular class, there are 3 assignments. 2 of them have been assigned, and I have not started them yet. The other one is marked as missing because it's past the due date. As these assignments are completed and graded, you will see grades show up there. Just keep in mind, unless the teacher has added the setting to display your average grade at the top, you will not see an average score. And since most teachers keep track of their grades in eSchool, sometimes this is not that critical anyway. But if your teacher uses the grades feature in your Google Classroom, this is where you would find the grades in Google Classroom. Next, let's take a look at archived classes. When you complete a class, students often just unenroll themselves. However, if your teacher archives that class, you will be able to later view assignments in your work from that class under the Archive section on the left. To find your archived classes, look under your menu on the left-hand side. Near the bottom, you will see Archived Classes. You can easily recognize these archived classes because the banner at the top has a cross-hatching of lines through it. Well, it would seem that Google Chrome would be the best app to use with Google Classroom on the iPad since both are designed by Google. Sometimes files just don't open the way that they should in the Chrome app. I have found that it's best to use the Safari app opening files on your iPad from Google Classroom. If you try to open a file, such as a Google form, from Google Classroom and it defaults you directly to Chrome, let's take a look at how you can change that. Under the settings, if you go to Default Apps, you have a couple options that you can take here. First, you can make sure that Google Classroom will ask you every time which app to use. I have that turned on. If I turn that off though, I can actually check Safari, and every time I try to open a form or a YouTube video from Google Classroom, it will default and open that in Safari. Some students have this set to Chrome and they won't get their videos or their forms to open correctly. By changing this to Safari, it can be a helpful way to do that. If you prefer Google Chrome, that is fine, but generally Safari tends to have fewer issues when working with files on the iPad. Lastly, let's take a look at notifications. One downside of Google Classroom is the number of notifications that are sent. In the menu on the left, under Settings and Notifications, you can choose to adjust the notifications to best fit your communication needs. The first choice is email communication. If I turn this slider off, all notifications by email from Google Classroom will be stopped. This is not a recommended option though, because there are many other ways you can manage communication and the emails from Google Classroom. If you tap the arrow next to class notifications, you will see all of your individual classes. In this case now you can turn off certain ones and leave other ones on. The ones that are turned off, this will eliminate all emails and all notifications on your device. The ones that are on will continue to get those. Finally, we can look at device notifications. This will direct you to the settings on your iPad. Now, under your Google Classroom settings, and they can also be found in this menu on the left, you can see here Google Classroom down toward the bottom. If I go under the notifications, I can either turn those on to allow them or turn those off. The downside with having those turned on is anytime a teacher posts an assignment, an announcement, or notification, it will show up on your screen. This can be distracting if you're in other classes or working on something else. So by turning that off, you will not get those notifications. The downside to that is sometimes you might miss something that's important by not seeing that notification. So in the end, it'll be up to you to choose what is best for you. All students have assignments that are given in Google Classroom. So the more you learn about how to navigate the app, the more efficient you will be in staying organized and getting your work turned in on time, which is an important part of being a successful student here at McKinley High School.